Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the 29th annual Mongiardo speech competition, graciously sponsored by the Mongiardo family. I'm Professor Sarah Pitts, and luckily most of you already know that I do not normally sound like this. It's just a one-week thing. But I am so happy to extend a welcome to our friends and family who are here today. And I'm incredibly proud of our students over here for their hard work leading up to today. Not only does it take a certain amount of gumption to be able to stand on this stage and give a speech in front of your peers, but in addition to that, each one of these students had to express interest in this competition a month ago and had to turn in a full draft of their speech 10 days ago. So it's safe to say that a lot of hard work has gone into defining the Purpose Road. And I have had the opportunity to get to listen to and read these speeches prior to today, and I gotta tell you, I am so happy that I am not one of our judges today. So, we have 4 participants today who will be speaking with us about their definitions of the key elements of the Purpose Road, and this year's prompt was threefold. 1, to choose and define a concept of a signpost from the Purpose Road. 2, then to tell us about how their time at ALC has been impacted by that definition. And number 3, how they will use that and what they've learned in their future. So please join me in welcoming our participants. Our participants will be speaking in the following order today. First, we'll have Justin Nicholas Witt, a freshman from Hazard, Kentucky. Then we'll have McKenna Morgan, a senior from Leslie County, Kentucky. Then we'll have Kennedy Clarkson, a junior from Lincoln County, Kentucky. Then we'll have Sonora Mosley, a junior from Garrett, Kentucky. Thank you so much.
So, consciousness. Well, according to the Webster Dictionary, the textbook definition of consciousness is the state of being aware of one's surroundings, which seems obvious enough. I wish I was aware of my surroundings to keep me from jabbing my toe on the Howard stairs. What? It left a scar! However, my definition of consciousness is more specific than that. My definition is constantly being aware of not just your surroundings, but your choices, such as how to present yourself, what occupation you desire, and why you want it. Basically, always being present in the moment, which can be hard during the 21st century, with things like Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. Those are social media apps for those of you who still use Facebook. Life can be confusing and complicated, which is why focusing on yourself is so important, because consciousness to me is constantly being aware of the mountains you climbed, but still being ready for the challenges ahead. Granted, I don't hike, so take that metaphor with a grain of salt. However, some ask, what does that mean? Well, one of my key strategies for performing in a show, taking a test, and yes, public speaking, is to take a deep breath and live in that moment. Revel in the seconds before you achieve your goal. It is that one moment that can make all the difference. To assess the importance of consciousness, especially in our region of Appalachia, I will discuss how this college emphasizes consciousness for its students on an individual scale. Then, we will look at how ALC can help create jobs in Appalachia. And finally, how we can use it outside of these beautiful mountains which cause so much horrible traffic in the morning. Regarding our actual mountains at ALC, this place allows us to cut away distractions from the outside world and focus on our faith as well as our success in the real world. And we definitely need to cut away distractions. Attempting to focus more on our education and less on university ravers is what many kids go here for. Not only do the college's work studies help improve our students' cost and tuition, but it even allows us to discipline ourselves when we do start our lives in the workforce. I barely knew how to use an email when I first got here, but thanks to my job in admissions, I can now insert thousands of applications in the college's database on my own. An article titled, "Should Students Hold Jobs While in High School?" written by Walden University, claims working while getting an education can improve time management skills, build confidence, and believe it or not, keep kids out of trouble. In fact, there are other studies that support this radical idea that being more focused could actually reduce crime. According to Jane Porter of the Chicago Booth article titled, "A Powerful Tool for At-Risk Youth," Porter claims that at-risk teens benefit from learning to act less automatically and instead assess situations and respond appropriately. In other words, being more conscious in our day-to-day lives helps improve our well-being inside and outside of the classroom. It could even reduce crime rates. Porter goes on to explain a study in which roughly 3,000 men in 7th to 10th grade from the south and west side of Chicago, who were taught for a year techniques to improve them to act less automatically and more consciously. Researchers found that these young men during that very year had reduced arrests for violent crimes by 44% and other crimes by 36%, estimating a graduation rate of up to 22%. Now, I'm not saying having a conscious mind is going to keep little Timmy from robbing a candy store, which, by the way, I can say those don't exist around here anymore. I looked it up while making this paper. However, this shows that just being in the moment and learning how to be conscious throughout your life can make all the difference. ALC encourages conscious thinking unlike other colleges, with our convocations which constantly engages our students' perspectives on life. From a chalk artist that encourages us to take risks so we live a more fulfilling life, to an amazing violinist who shows us the beauty of not just music, but hard work and consistency. All of these are the qualities that help the students of ALC individually succeed in being more conscious about our life decisions. Moving away from how this college helps students, let's look at the bigger picture. Many people suffer from poverty, but none quite as much as this region. Appalachia is going up in many regards, but it is still considered one of the poorest regions in our country. According to Forbes magazine, written by Mark Hendrickson, Kentucky is the 9th most impoverished state in America. Not only that, but the World Population Review ranked us even lower at 6th and 2nd in domestic violence. Any of those statistics would make kids like me want to leave the state completely, leaving all our family and culture behind just for a better shot at life. Heck, those odds are worse than when my grandmother decided to experiment with my 10-year-old brother's hair. Let's just say he looked less like Tom Cruise and more like Shirley Temple. Despite those striking statistics, however, Alice Lloyd proves to be a college by Appalachia for Appalachia. We not only encourage people to have their drawn-out accents or wear their cowboy hats, but embrace it. Many kids from this college come from all different parts of the Appalachian region, with a sense of unity and shared connection. This college not only gives students of this region a place close to home to get an education, but even presents opportunities for more jobs here. Many graduating students here have occupations at the college to help them have a stable income straight after graduation. Now, after I graduate from this college, I'm hoping to attend law school at the University of Kentucky. Of course, I am only a freshman. I am young and immature, but already this place has made me discipline myself to work even when it seems like it's not worth it. I have been pushed to finally address my mental health, even start going to therapy on my own terms. Before I leave you, I would like to tell you a story. Picture this. There I am in the middle of a riveting performance on the golden stage of the beautiful, magnificent, breathtaking production of it was a high school play of the board game Clue. Now, in this scene, I shoot one of my co-stars with a fake revolver, and the sound cue is, "Now we've got you for good, body," and the backstage would create the shooting sound. However, during the show, when we performed this scene, I refused to be conscious of what my director told me about the sound cue. So instead of saying the correct line, I said, "Now we've got you." The gun didn't go off. And there I was, standing like a 15-year-old in the early stages of arthritis. Suddenly, the gunshot did go off. My castmate was still standing on the floor. I panicked and fell against the hard wooden stage, playing dead. My character wasn't supposed to die. I was the main character. So you can imagine what the rest of the play looked like. Awkward silence has truly found more of a stage presence in that show. But you see what I'm talking about. Consciousness is truly an important facet of all of our lives, because the last thing we need in our life is to be out of focus. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm McKenna Morgan. For most of my life, I was terrified of heights. As a child, my heart would sink when my dad and I would reach the top of a Ferris wheel and he would begin to rock the cart back and forth. I wondered if all dads done this. My hands would even get clammy at just the thought of the drop of a roller coaster. So I made it my goal a few years ago that I was going to conquer my fear of heights. In 2019, while I was on a trip to Costa Rica, I finally had the opportunity to face my fear. I looked at the itinerary and seen that zip lining was one of the main activities. I knew that I couldn't let this opportunity pass me by and that I was going to have to face my fear of heights. As I stood at the edge of the deck with all my gear on, I took a deep breath and I jumped. As I looked down at the canopy below me, I was no longer filled with fear, but I was in awe of everything that was around me. I had finally achieved my goal and had conquered my fear. I'm sure that if I were to ask everyone in this auditorium if they've had a goal or a dream, I would see a lot of raised hands or head nods. But does anyone know what the most important factor is in achieving goals? According to Mariah Conley, who is a life coach who's published numerous life and leadership skill articles, success starts with the first step. Success requires one to reach out, to take steps towards their goals, and to just do, to jump. See, we can't reach a goal if we don't try, right? This seems like common sense. However, more often than not, this is where many people fail. Many people let the fear of being imperfect, the judgment of others, or a lack of self-confidence result in failure before they even begin. So how do we limit this chance of falling into failure? The answer lies in one word: courage. It is the key to reaching goals and allows us to take the steps needed toward achieving our ambitions. So what is courage and why is it important? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, courage is the mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Courage means doing something even when it becomes difficult or in the midst of opposition. And it is overcoming the fears that restrict you from reaching your full potential. I've been a student at Alice Lloyd for nearly 3 years. And before my time here, courage was synonymous with these bold acts of bravery and heroism. People like Joan of Arc, who was burned at the stake for standing up for what she believed in. Or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. fighting for equal rights. Or David standing up to Goliath in the battle against the Philistines. And while these are all great examples of what courage can be, courage more often looks like making daily choices in the midst of fear, self-doubt, and other internal struggles, knowing that these decisions can better your life and the lives of those around you. We can all be courageous in our own ways. Courage can be having the bravery to say a kind word to someone you pass in the hall, or letting a professor know how much you appreciate them. It can also be persevering through your chemistry class, or studying for statistics when it's hard, or reading Shakespeare when you're tired. See, these little acts of courage can add up to a lifetime of purpose. Remember back just a couple of minutes ago when I asked you to think of your goals. Well, I'm sure that if each of you were to think about your pursuit of these goals, you would realize that you've already exhibited a great deal of courage, because this is what it takes. Miss Lloyd knew the importance of courage when achieving goals. She left her home and everything she knew to come to these mountains and establish a school. She had the courage to interact with people she was unfamiliar with and didn't know if they would accept her. And she had the courage to write to others pleading for funding to help provide accessible education to those of the region. She done all of this because she knew she could make a difference in the lives of others. Service to others was her goal. It was her purpose. And without courage, she couldn't have achieved. My life's goal and purpose is much like Miss Lloyd's. I desire to serve others. I desire to have an influence on the lives of the people I encounter. And in particular, I plan to serve the youth of Appalachia by following Miss Lloyd and Miss June's legacy by continuing to help provide accessible education to those of the region. I want every child to receive the gift of education and an opportunity to succeed. But it will take courage to fight for these opportunities. It will take courage from me to persevere in the classroom, to plan each lesson with the interest of each of my students at heart, and to put in the effort needed to engage my students in the gift of learning. I'm not going to lie, I've always struggled trying to find my purpose, like I'm sure many of you have. What should I do in life? Where am I supposed to be in life? and who am I supposed to be were all questions that I often toiled with. However, I realized that the problem all along was that I was trying to look to myself to find my purpose, and it was never until I had the courage to look at those around me that I seen all of the needs that were waiting to be met. I then realized that true purpose is in the service of those around you. Civil rights activist Gandhi once stated that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. It is what truly makes a difference in the lives of individuals and leaves a legacy behind. In order to partake in this service of others, we will have to have courage. I hope that each of you look to your goals and ask yourself if they are in the interest of service and helping those around you. And I hope that each of you go forward with the courage to pursue these ambitions in order to live a life of purpose. Thank you.
Hello. Are the judges ready? Is the timer ready? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to listen to the speeches today. Our topic is to choose a word from the Purpose Road philosophy and to define it in several ways. I chose to define the word interest because this past semester I've realized that interest is essential to doing well in classes. Interest is a major driving force in education, work, and life. Without interest, there is no motivation and no direction. Some might argue that interest is secondary in life. What matters is that one has a goal and incentives to reach that goal. But I must disagree. A goal will never be reached without incentives to reach the goal, and one must have an interest in either the goal itself or the incentive to reach the goal. And without interest, goals will never even be set. That is why interest is essential to daily life. I'm going to define interest, look at it in terms of Alice Lloyd College, and discuss its place on the Purpose Road. Merriam-Webster defines interest as a feeling of wanting to learn more about something or to be involved in something. To me, interest is that feeling of being absorbed into a subject. It's a fixation, a curiosity, a childlike fascination. Interest is staring into the galaxy and drinking in the stars. Now earlier, I said I chose interest because of some personal experience with it this semester. I was talking with a friend, and he was asking me how I could just sit and read about subjects every day. I realized it's because I maintain an interest in my classes. It's not easy all the time. It's hard to drum up fascination when you're tired or distracted. But without getting excited to learn, the brain just doesn't soak up information as well. This principle holds true for other facets of life. School, jobs, hobbies, they're all the same in terms of interest. Since I have been at Alice Lloyd, I've noticed that interest drives performance. According to an article entitled Interest Matters, the Importance of Promoting Interest in Education, published by the National Center for Biotechnology Information, interest is a powerful motivational process that energizes learning, guides academic and career trajectories, and is essential to academic success. When students are interested in an academic topic, they are more likely to go to class, pay attention, become engaged, take more courses, as well as process information effectively and ultimately perform well. Interest has a wide range of variety among individuals. That in and of itself should be obvious because of the existence of all the different majors. Some people are interested in business, some are interested in art, some are interested in science. But interest is not always singular. That's why we have minors. What's the advice? Major in what you're good at, minor in what you're not so good at. Because the point is to become well-rounded. Take a class in something that has nothing to do with your major or minor for the experience. Learn a language or a skill that sparks your interest. It might come in handy one day. Interest is contagious. Have you ever listened to someone talk about something that they are passionate about but you have little to no experience with? Their excitement about whatever it is starts to pique your interest after a while. I remember having dinner one night and my friend started talking about his pets, particularly his reptiles. I found out by listening that I know extraordinarily little about reptiles as pets. After dinner, I left the den with my head buzzing about the intricacies of breeding the different genotypes of pythons and the going rates for the rare patterns. I don't know what I'll do with this information, but I have it now, so maybe I'll use it one day. Interest doesn't have to be expressed verbally. Another friend of mine did yoga. The first time I ever saw her do it, I was struck by her complete focus on what she was doing. Her eyes were forward, she was slowing her breathing, and her movements were steady as a rock. We ended up up sharing the gym a couple of times after that, and each time she would slip off into her own world as she moved from pose to pose. She told me that she would get up before breakfast and classes and go to the gym for an hour to work out every morning. It wasn't so much that she talked about yoga all the time, but she lived her interest. And that brings us to the purpose road. Interest is the second sign on the purpose road, right after conscience and just before duty. The purpose road philosophy is about a journey from thinghood to world service. All the parts, conscience, interest, duty, action, courage, and consecration, are going in the same direction towards service. Interest doesn't walk the purpose road alone. In the purpose road diagram, there is a place for everyone. Whether a person is still in thinghood or has just launched into their mission of world service, we are all represented by a square, a human machine. It has been my experience that coming into the realm of possibility is not comfortable, and that everything that happens to you leaves you with a choice. You can either become better and continue to grow, or you can become bitter and stagnate or regress. But the people who are embittered by their experiences are not truly interested in what lies ahead. Interest is a major driving force in education, work, and life. Without interest, there is no motivation and no direction. According to an article published by Biomedical Central Public Health entitled Loss of Interest, Depressed Mood, and Impact on the Quality of Life Cross-Sectional Survey, loss of interest and depressed mood were associated with significant decreases in health-related quality of life. Interest drives performance. It has a wide and varied range among individuals, and it is contagious. Interest is the second signpost on the purpose road because without interest, you will never reach service. When we think of service, we probably think of community service or military service or missionaries or maybe just working for free. But I think in life we often get sidetracked by the big picture and forget about the details. You don't have to take a vow of poverty and dedicate your life to taking medicine to people in third world countries to be serving. Nor do you have to work yourself to death, collect buckets of money, and then give it all away to make the biggest difference you possibly can. But I'd like to remind you of the details before I go back to my seat. There's a story that goes something like this. A man went down to the beach one day after a storm and saw that the waves had washed up thousands of starfish onto the sand. After marveling at the sheer number of beach starfish, he noticed a young man down the beach throwing the starfish back into the sea. He asked him why he was doing that. After all, there were so many that the guy couldn't possibly hope to make a difference. After tossing another starfish back, he said, "It made a difference to that one." There's nothing wrong with wanting to make the biggest difference you possibly can, but just remember that service to the individual is service to that person's world. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sonora Mosley, and today I want to give a speech that I have titled, with the help of my mother, A Journey to Courage. From the moment we begin our careers here on Caney Creek, we hear about the Purpose Road philosophy and the concepts that it encompasses. From the 6 concepts of conscience, interest, duty, action, courage, and consecration, I have found that while a person can have one without another, something always seems to be missing. Yet it is only when that person has all 6 concepts working in harmony within themselves that they can find a greater sense of accomplishment, of purpose, and of true joy. For today, however, I want to focus on what I have found to be the most important concept of the Purpose Road philosophy, the concept of courage. From what is courage to how courage has played such a major role within my own journey here while I've been on Caney Creek, to how I hope to use and spread the Purpose Road philosophy on my journey through life. So, what exactly is courage? Well, according to a simple Google search, courage is defined as the choice and willingness to confront agony, pain, danger, or intimidation. However, the Cambridge English Dictionary defines courage slightly differently, as the ability to control fear and to be willing to deal with something that is dangerous, difficult, or unpleasant. And yes, both definitions are incredibly similar, but I am struck by such a major difference between these two. One states that courage is a choice to confront our fears. The other states that it is the ability to control those fears. Personally, I found that courage is a choice to act, to speak up when you could have stayed silent, or to try something new, something exciting that you've never done before. But I have also found that courage is the ability to control your fear to an extent. When you're in the moment, when you're standing up to give a speech, when you're taking those first steps into the unknown, I have found that you choose whether you listen to your fear and allow that fear to influence your actions, and you control those fears when you get into that moment. Now that we know what courage is, I want to share with you how it has played such a significant role within my time here on Caney Creek. When I first started college, it was the fall of 2018. I was shy and extremely introverted. And while I'm still a bit shy, and I'm definitely still an introvert, I can confidently say that I no longer allow my fear to control me as much as I used to. And I say that simply because I'm standing here today giving this speech. In past years, you would have found me in the audience, not on the stage. And it's not because I did not want to compete, because I did, but instead because I was too afraid of failing. Back in 2019, it was my second semester as a freshman, and I first heard about the Mongiardo speech competition. The topic for that year was about Appalachian dialects and how it's different from the rest of the world and how we should be proud of it. And I had the entire speech ready to go in my head, but I talked myself out of it. I listened to my fear. I was too afraid of failing, of embarrassing myself, but it didn't really matter at the end of the day because I didn't even try. The growth to get where I am today hasn't been easy. I'm still afraid of failing, of embarrassing myself, and there has been so many other fears that have gone through my head while preparing for this competition today. But instead of allowing myself to give up and say that I was not even going to attempt to be a part of this competition, I only allowed it to drive me forward, to make me realize, like, hey, yeah, it's going to be hard, it's not going to be easy, but you can do it. I wanted to show myself that it isn't important whether I embarrass myself or if I fail. It's about the fact that I actually did it, that I proved to myself that I am more than just my fear. And with that, it brings me back to something that I kept coming back to every time that I was thinking about what I wanted to say in the speech. A quote from one of my favorite authors of all time, Tolkien, in Lord of the Rings. "It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step into the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you're going to be swept off to." This was a quote that Frodo was telling his friends on a journey from Bag End to, I can't even remember at this point, but it was said by his uncle Bilbo. And I kept coming back to it for one reason. If we don't know where we're going, do we even go out the door? Not always, not usually, not really. And that brings me back to the Purpose Road. What good does being conscious and interested in a duty that we have enough that we want to consecrate ourselves to it? And by the way, consecration, I looked it up because I wasn't 100% sure what it meant. It just means dedicating ourselves to something. So we consecrate ourselves to a faith or to our education. But if we don't have enough courage to act in the first place, everything else is meaningless. And that is why, as I walk through my life's journey, I want to be able to help others to take that first step, not to allow themselves to live in their fears. The Purpose Road philosophy is not just something that we have here. We can take it with us and we can spread it. We don't just have to keep it here in the Appalachian Mountains. We can spread it no matter where we go. And I think that is one of the most important things that we can learn from the Purpose Road philosophy. It's living out the Purpose Road philosophy that makes life so much easier and more fulfilling. But it takes that first step. Because if you take that first step, it becomes easier to live out the Purpose Road philosophy. Thank you.